What's up people? So I was thinking about how to intro this video, and then I came to the conclusion that I don't really need to. I don't need to talk about the origins or the benefits of the pull-up. If you are here, it means you want to get better at them. So I'm just gonna jump right in and tell you how to do that, whether you are a complete beginner or more intermediate level. I'm gonna give you my best tips and advice on how to go from basically being really sucky at pull-ups to being an absolute pull-up master like moi. Just a side note on credentials to give me some form of authority to be able to actually talk about this. Whilst I'm not the best in the world at pull-ups, obviously, I'd be sick if I was, that'd be wild. Anyway, I am decent at them. I reckon straight off the bat, I could probably get a set of 25 to 30 out body weight, and my best weighted is about 8 reps with 25 kilograms plus body weight, obviously. So here are my best pull-up tips and advices, and I think I'm gonna try and put them in some semblance of an order, starting with the most basic and then getting slightly more advanced as we go. Number one, practice, practice, practice. So it's no secret that to get better at something, you have to do it more. That is pretty obvious, but it does have some implications on how you are going to approach your pull-ups. Firstly, don't think that you're just able to do endless lat pull downs and then one day miraculously you're going to be able to do pull-ups all of a sudden. Although that is a very similar movement path and it uses the same muscle groups, there are minor differences which are going to mean that your lat pull down strength won't translate into pull-up strength as much as you might imagine. And that's quite a common mistake that people who can't do any pull-ups make. They'll just sit there on lat pull down trying to get better at that and then hope that one day they're going to be able to hop over and do some pull-ups, but it's probably not going to happen. So you do need to find a way to do assisted pull-ups. Now there are two main ways that people can do this. The first is the assisted pull-up and sometimes dip station that people have in gyms, where there's a pad that you can put your knees on and a stack, and you'll just put the pin in the stack, and instead of a typical machine where that's the weight you're lifting, that is the weight that's assisting your pull-up. Now that's a pretty good option if you have that, because with it being a stack, you can gradually reduce the amount of assistance you're using, which gives you some form of progression to work with, and then hopefully one day you can take it away completely. Now if you don't have that machine in your gym, or if for some strange reason your gym is closed right now, then you can actually do them with resistance bands by just looping a resistance band around the bar and then putting your foot inside it. And I would probably argue that this is even better than the machine, because you still have to control your body weight and have some element of stabilization worked into the motion, whereas with your knees on the pad with the assisted machine, it's not quite the same. You're more kind of locked in. And again, if you have bands that provide different levels of resistance, you can start with the highest resistance, which would then be the most assistance, and then you could reduce until eventually one day hopefully you can do without assistance. Number two, fail less and rest more. So one common mistake I see people doing is going to failure too often. They'll jump on the bar and just do as many pull-ups as possible and think, well, you know, logically that's going to eventually allow me to do more and more, and it probably will. You probably will make some progress like that, but whilst I understand the logic behind it, I do think that can be somewhat counterproductive, because really the theme here overall is building up your total weekly volume of pull-ups. You know, do more to get better at them, same as the last point really. And if you take your first set of pull-ups to failure, you're likely gonna fatigue to the point where your next set is gonna be heavily impacted, and the number of reps you're gonna be able to do will be dramatically reduced. And if you take that one to failure, it'll have a big knock-on effect on the following set and the following set, and soon you're gonna be doing your sets and really there's not going to be any meaningful amount of volume going on. So a better approach would be to stop a couple of reps short from failure to keep some in the tank for your subsequent sets. For example, if you could do a maximum of 5 pull-ups, say, then your first set should be maybe a set of 3. So you would start with a set of 3, you would resist the temptation to do more, then take a solid rest period and do the same for your next set. So by all means take your final set or even your final 2 sets to failure, but the vast majority of those working sets should be stopping 1 or 2 reps short of failure. And that still applies whether you're using assistance, just body weight, or even added resistance. In fact, it applies across the board for just every exercise you want to get better at. And just a final note on building up weekly volume. You don't necessarily have to keep your pull-ups to one specific workout. It doesn't have to be your pull workout. It doesn't have to be your upper body workout. It doesn't have to be anything specifically. If you are just trying to build up your total weekly volume, you can do pull-ups whenever you want. There's absolutely no problem with doing pull-ups every day if you really want to, or you can just keep them in your normal, let's say, pull workout and then you can just add a few sets in at the start or the end of your leg workout or any other workout. It's really just about finding ways to do more of them. Number 3, negatives. So negative reps or full sets of negative reps do have the place when trying to build up strength, whether you are using just body weight and you can't actually do any pull-ups, or even if you are quite advanced and you're trying to progress and build up your weighted pull-up. You could either put in a couple of reps towards the end of your typical set, or you could do full sets of negative reps. Now you need to use a step so that you can step up to the bar and skip the concentric portion of the rep, and then just do a slow, controlled, eccentric phase, and then step back up again and repeat. As I say, you can either do full sets of these, or you can do them to try and take your individual sets a bit further. Let's say your final set, you are taking that to failure. You can then go to failure on negatives as well. And if you try and time the negative phase of your rep, you can give it maybe 5 seconds or so. Number 4, accessories. All right, so I think I've hammered home the point enough now about doing more pull-ups to get better at pull-ups, and it is finally safe for me to talk about accessories and other things that might assist your pull-up. So I would say there are 2 main limiting factors in the pull-up aside from the actual strength in your back muscles to complete the pull, and they are bicep strength and grip strength. Now obviously your biceps are working as a secondary muscle group in your pull to provide elbow flexion, so it makes sense to just build up an adequate level of strength through some targeted bicep isolation exercises, so basically curls. Now if you want to be really specific, you could even do hammer grip curls, because if you think about the grip on your pull-up, it is more close to a hammer grip than a supinated grip like in traditional curls. Now I would say it's rare that this is the single thing holding people back from being able to do pull-ups, and so I just think it's something to keep in mind and not neglect, as opposed to something to put too much emphasis on. More common is a lack of grip strength, and this can really hold people back. So whilst I don't think it's necessary to do any targeted specific grip strength or forearm training, I would recommend limiting the use of lifting straps in both your pull-ups and also all other pull exercises, so rows, deadlifts, and even shrugs. If you use these too much, then your grip strength will never develop in line with the rest of your strength, and eventually you'll become dependent on them. So one day you go to the gym and you forget your lifting straps, and now all of a sudden you can't do any pull-ups, or pull-ups to any great extent anyway. So try and build up your grip strength by limiting the use of those lifting straps to when you absolutely need them. If it's not necessary, don't use them. So I would say maybe keep them to your final set, or just the heaviest sets when they are absolutely required, necessary, needed for you to be able to complete the set. And if you do that, your grip strength should develop in line with everything else, and it should be perfectly adequate and not something that holds you back. Number 5, use a strong grip. So where and how you grip the bar will affect how easy or difficult it is. Generally, a wider grip is going to be more difficult, and a more narrow grip is going to be easier. Now technically a pronated grip is a pull-up and a supinated grip is a chin-up, so I don't really know what a neutral or hammer grip would technically class as, but it's all semantics really anyway. Point is, from my experience, a roughly shoulder width neutral or hammer grip seems to be the easiest. It seems to provide the most power, and you might notice that when doing your lat pull downs if you compare the wide pronated grip to the narrow grip handles, which are usually a neutral grip, and compare which weight you can use for those, and I would wager that it is the latter. And so if you have that grip available where you're doing pull-ups, I would suggest using it at least to practice anyway and get better at pull-ups for the time being. It doesn't mean you have to stick to that grip forever, but it will certainly make it easier for you to build up your overall pull-up strength before moving on to a different grip later. Number 6, add what the fuck is that? That is not 6. That is not 6. Number 6, keep progressing. So earlier I spoke about using assistance and then gradually trying to reduce the amount of assistance you're using until eventually you are able to do pull-ups with just body weight. But if you think about it, body weight is just one point on that scale. It's just an arbitrary point on that scale of strength that you should always be moving upwards. And so there's no reason to stop when you get to body weight. I think the temptation can be with body weight exercises such as pull-ups or dips or whatever it is, that when you get there to being able to do them with just body weight, you just kind of stagnate there a bit, let yourself off the hook and stop trying to add weight to the exercise. But really you should be treating it just like any other exercise. You constantly try and make them harder. you persevere with it, you adapt, become capable, and then you repeat the process. I think the easiest way to add weight to your pull-ups is to use one of those belts where you can thread the chain through a plate, and you can obviously use plates of different weight and gradually progress up those. If you don't have one of those, you can even just hold a dumbbell between your feet, or if you're not in the gym, you're doing pull-ups at home or somewhere else, you could just put weight inside a backpack and obviously keep track of that, gradually increase the amount of weight you're using. Or you could even get a weight vest and then use that for your pull-ups. Either way, there is many options, and so don't just get stuck on body weight, because we want to get sick, mate. We don't just want to be decent at pull-ups, we want to be sick at pull-ups. All right, that's it. I don't think I even have an outro either. Let's all just get proper sick at pull-ups. Like my shit. When I say my shit, I mean my video. Subscribe to my channel. Leave me a nice comment. Say, Joe, you're sound. You're a pleasant guy. I want to be your mate. And then I'll respond saying, we are now friends. See you there.
Joe Lenny is my hero.